We are recording, and for those of you who are joining us online later and watching this and wondering why I'm wandering around outside for the class tonight with four-wheelers driving by on the dirt road in the background, it's because the air conditioner is not working at my house. And so we've been staying at my mother-in-law's house, and we moved the internet over there. But unfortunately, she had a doctor's appointment, and so she didn't get back in time. And so I can't get in the house where the wireless is. And if I go over to my house, it won't reach. So I'm just kind of wandering around outside and I'm kind of keep moving because if I stand still, the mosquitoes start consuming me. So that's what's going on for those of you who watch this later. Um, uh, I wanted to clarify a point for all of you. I saw a text going around earlier. And that the point I wanted to clarify is that outlines, um, the outlines that you're working on are not due until next week. Some of you have already turned it in, and that's cool. You've done outlines for me before, and you've done outlines on your own before. You're good. Some of you doing outlines is a new thing. I spent some time with some of you helping you develop those. And if you're having trouble knowing what I need from an outline, get with me privately later and I can help you try to figure out. But I'm just wanting a 1 or 2 page outline that covers the basic ideas where all the ideas of oh, there she is. Hallelujah. She's home. Uh, she's checking her mail, getting her mail over there. Hello. No, I can't get in the house. Yeah, I'm out here. I'm out here just walking so the mosquitoes don't eat me. She says, "You enjoying the view?" See where Annie gets it now, Bruce? The So anyway, what was I saying? Oh, your outlines are not due to next week, and if you need help with that, let me know. Now I need to look up what I need for. I gotta open up our lesson for tonight. So give me a second while I try to find that. Sorry about this. Let's see here. There it is. And I'm having trouble finding it. Sorry, guys. I just had it, and now I can't find it. There it is. Okay. I'm going to open up the share. Can everyone see it? Okay. So we're at verse 18. I believe we were done with verse 17, and we're ready to start with verse 18, where we start getting into why everyone is without excuse. Um, uh, Vito, would you mind reading verses 18 through 20 here that I got on the screen? Okay, hold on. I think you're muted. I'm going to ask to unmute.
Sorry about that.
Okay, yeah, verse 18 through 20.
The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all godlessness and wickedness of men who suppose the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse.
So what Paul is going to go on to do here is he talks about how the gospel is for everybody, and it's the same gospel that saves everybody. Last week we talked about what that gospel was and how the older dispensationalists try to say that there's one gospel for the Jews and another gospel for the Gentiles, and how that's inaccurate. What he's going to do is he's going to expand on that and prove that everyone is without excuse. No one's going to be able to get there on Judgment Day and say, but God, I know I didn't obey the gospel, but I didn't know. I never heard the Bible. I never knew you existed. No one ever preached to me. So I got an excuse. You should let me off the hook. And what this chapter is saying is that everyone is without excuse because enough information has been given to all of us that we should know, that we should be fully knowledgeable of God's existence. And if we know he exists, then we should seek him. And if Jesus said, if you seek, you'll find. And so this is why, like the limited light doctrine, that some people didn't have, you know, some people didn't have the knowledge to obey the gospel, so God's going to let them into heaven. No, in the past, God overlooked such ignorance, but now he commands everyone everywhere to repent. So this verse is going to go through and say that there's no excuse for not hearing Jesus, not learning about Jesus. Everyone is without excuse. Oh, air conditioning. Thank you, Lord. Okay. So we're 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 none of us have an excuse for not obeying the gospel of Christ. Okay? And so I want you guys to let's know where the light switch is. I want you guys to see where this is going. And I'm going to cover this in detail with you guys and talk about it, but know where we're going. And that is that everybody is without excuse. No one has any reason to not believe in God. And that's one of the things that leads me to think that deep down, everyone knows there's a God. It's just some people are mad at him or don't want to submit to him, and so they'll delude themselves into believing, well, he doesn't exist. God doesn't exist. Um, and they'll delude, but deep down they know. That's why I was joking, say the atheist is a person who believes in God. You put the A in front of it means no. So no God. Atheist is a person who says there's no God. And then I always joke and say, I'm a atheist. I don't believe there are any real atheists. There's some people who delude themselves, but deep down, everybody knows right and wrong. Everybody knows to murder someone's wrong. Everyone knows cheating on your wife's wrong. Everyone knows stealing's wrong. Everyone knows that somebody made all this. There's some things that are just obvious, okay? And so we know them. So that's what I want you guys to get from this chapter as we go through in chapter 1, starting in verses 18, all the way through the end of chapter 2. We're going to be dealing with the same thing. So let me bump forward here. Okay, back up. So his wrath is being revealed. Read Jude 1, 5 through 7 for us, please, Philip.
Though you already know all this, I want to remind you that the Lord at one time delivered his people out of Egypt, but later destroyed those who did not believe. And the angels who did not keep their positions of authority but abandoned their proper dwelling, these he has kept in darkness, bound in the everlasting chains of judgment on the great day. In a similar way, Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding towns gave themselves up to sexual immorality and perversion. They serve as an example of those who suffer the punishment of eternal fire.
So the wrath of God is being revealed. God isn't keeping it a secret about his wrath. He destroyed Egypt and delivered his people. He put in chains those angels who abandoned their proper dwelling and are now kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains. And in a similar way, same story, just like the angels left their proper place and, they came down and slept with women, they left their proper place. So the Sodomites and Gomorrah people, they committed to sexual immorality and perversion and slept with people they weren't supposed to sleep with. And they serve as an example of those who suffer the punishment of eternal fire. So God's wrath hasn't been hidden. He has given us examples again and again throughout history uh, of destroying nations and people who turn to wickedness. And all of that is showing his justice. And you should not doubt, would God destroy most people and save only a few? Yeah, he did in the flood. Will he uh, wipe out a nation to set his people free? Yeah, he did to Egypt. Will he destroy a whole people because they're perverted and accept sexual sin? Yeah, he did Sodom and Gomorrah. Will he take the most powerful of beings and put them in chains and judgment for perversion and sin? Yes. His wrath has been revealed. It hasn't been hidden. He's been revealing his wrath all through history again and again. Look at 2 Peter 2:4. Kyle, would you read verses 4 through 9 for us?
Yes, sir. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, he sent them to Tartarus, putting them in chains of darkness to be held for judgment. If he did not spare the ancient world when he brought the flood on its ungodly people, but protected Noah, a preacher of righteousness, and 7 others, if he condemned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah by burning them to ashes, made them an example of what is going to happen to the ungodly, and if he rescued Lot, a righteous man who was distressed by the depraved conduct of the lawless, for that righteous man, living among them day after day, was tormented in his righteous soul by the lawless deeds he saw and heard. If this is so, then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials and to hold the unrighteous for punishment on the day of judgment.
So God knows how to punish the wicked and save the righteous. And by the way, when you're worried about days in the future when God would punish our nation or he would punish, yes, those kind of things happen, but all along he's known how to rescue the godly and punish the wicked. And we know that we're going to be rescued ultimately in heaven. And we don't have to worry. Even if we die, yet shall we live. But his wrath is being revealed. God doesn't save all of his wrath for the day of judgment, though his wrath on the day of judgment will be final and complete. But he has been pouring out his wrath all along, from the angels to Noah and the flood to Sodom and Gomorrah, uh, to with Lot, all along. He has been demonstrating his wrath. The wrath of God is being revealed now, present tense. There are wicked people doing wicked things and suffering. And not God doesn't always wait till hell to punish you for your sins. They have a way of ruining your life and sucking the joy out of things and removing anything good out of anything good uh, when you turn from him. And so the wrath of God is being revealed now. Look at Ephesians 5:5 through 7. Would you read that for us, David?
For of this you can be sure, no immortal, impure, or greedy person, such a person is idle
Idolater.
as any idolater. Oh, okay. As any
Inheritance.
inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of such things God's wrath comes on those who are disobedient. Therefore, do not be partners with them.
God's wrath comes on those who are disobedient. Not just on the day of judgment, not just in hell. It comes now. And so we need to realize that God is going to uh, pour out his wrath on us if we're involved in sin. There's going to be a punishment for that. No immoral person, no greedy person, no idolater. They don't have any inheritance of the kingdom of Christ. And the wrath of God comes on those who are disobedient. You suffer here, and then you go to hell, and you suffer then. It's eternal. Bruce, if you would read Colossians 4, 5, and 6 to us.
Put to death, therefore, the components of your earthly nature: sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. Because of these, the wrath of God is coming on the sons of disobedience.
Okay, so the wrath of God is being poured out. Why? Why is the wrath of God being poured out on these people? It's because they suppress the truth. The truth's there, they just suppress it. Have you ever noticed how the media, the news, culture is constantly trying to quiet people down who speak the truth? They can't win in the arena of ideas, so they have to get rid of free speech. One of the great blessings of our country, and the reason it's prospered so much, is truth was unstoppable here. The government didn't have the ability to shut people up. And the inability to stop the truth is what's allowed the truth to always sneak out here and made us prosperous and free. But as we start to suppress the truth, and modern media is doing that because these huge corporations have bought up all the news. Have you ever seen one of those videos where they've got all these different television channels saying the exact same thing? All these local news channels are all owned by like two or three companies. And so there isn't a diversity of thought, and everything is pre-programmed. And so they're trying to suppress speech now. And if it wasn't for the internet and Twitter and different things like that, even this other social media platforms all suppress the truth. They'll remove your posts or make your posts not seen by others, shadow ban you or outright kick you off the platform if you don't say what they want said. And we saw it during COVID where people who spoke the truth were outright removed and banned. And they want to suppress the truth. For me, I'm okay with the evolutionists teaching evolution because I love to compare evolution and its evidence to the Bible and its evidence. Because when you look at it, you come to see, hey, the Bible is the truth. I don't want to suppress what they're teaching. I want to, I want to expose what they're teaching. As long as I'm allowed to give my side, I'm perfectly fine with them giving their side. I'm not afraid of free speech. And so people who want to suppress the truth, that's wickedness. Look at 2 Peter 3, 4 through 6. Kyle, would you read that for us?
They will say, "Where is this coming he promised? Ever since our ancestors died, everything goes on as it has since the beginning of creation." But they deliberately forget that long ago, by God's word, the heavens came into being, and the earth was formed out of water and by water. By these waters also, the world of that time was deluged and destroyed.
Now, one of my favorite words, deluged. Um, they deliberately forget. I heard a preacher say once that they're stupid on purpose. They suppress the truth. They deliberately forget. And if you try to remind them, they will shut you up. Um, One of the things that you'll notice about people that don't speak the truth, is they'll attack the person, they'll mock the idea, but they won't deal with the issue. If you've got the truth, you don't need to mock the person or attack the person. All you need to do is attack the idea. And people who suppress the truth will come after you personally. They make it a personal attack. And oh, you're so dumb for believing in creation. Can you believe they believe in a sky daddy that gives them every, well, they probably believe in Santa and the Easter Bunny too. They'll say just dumb stuff. that don't deal with the real issue or the facts or what the argument even is. They deliberately forget. They suppress the truth. Um, 2 Thessalonians 2:10, and all the ways of the wicked deceives those who are perishing. They perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. Why do people go to hell? Because they refuse to love the truth and be saved. They suppress it. Why? Because the truth means, well, I can't be gay anymore if the Bible's the truth. Well, I can't cheat on my wife anymore. Or I can't cheat on my taxes, or um, I gotta pick up my cross and follow Christ. I've got to sacrifice. I mean, I can't go after money or sex or pleasure or my own pride and position. I have to become a servant to others. Well, that's uncomfortable. I don't like that truth. It must not be true. The Bible must not be true. When I find a person who's an ardent uh, atheist that was a Christian, they were a Christian serving God, and then become atheist, almost always, without exception, almost. I maybe if I think real hard, I can find an exception. But most of the ones I'm thinking of in my head, people I know who were Christians and became atheist, there was sexual sin that they got caught in, and they wanted to persist in that, and they wanted to live that lifestyle. They wanted to keep drinking. They wanted to keep getting high. They wanted to chase after money and then chase after girls. They wanted, they didn't want to live the Christian life. And so to justify that, they suppress the truth in order to justify their behavior or even their children's behavior. Sometimes I'll meet people who totally change their values and abandon Christianity. It's because one of their kids came out as gay and they didn't want to accept the idea that their child wasn't following God. So they had to deny God or deny their child, and they chose to deny God. They suppress the truth. They refuse to love the truth. They love something more than the truth. Some pleasure, some relationship, some prideful thing that they loved more than the truth. And every atheist has something that they love more than the truth. They say they're after the truth. They say that they're going by the facts and the science. But in reality, they're just suppressing the idea of God because they don't want to submit. And we'll see that as the passage progresses on, we'll see that very idea. Um, uh, Phil, would you read 2 Peter 2, 1 through 3?
But there were also false prophets among the people, just as there will be false teachers among you. They will secretly introduce destructive heresies, even denying the sovereign Lord who bought them, bringing swift destruction on themselves. Many will follow their depraved conduct and will bring the way of truth into disrepute. In their greed, these teachers will exploit you with fabricated stories. Their condemnation has long been hanging over them, and their destruction has not been sleeping.
See, false teachers are going to come in, even in the church, and introduce destructive heresies, denying the sovereign Lord, and it's going to destroy their lives. It's going to start now and last into eternity. They'll bring the way of truth into disrepute. They'll make people question what's true. And I've seen men, I've had Bible college professors who abandoned everything they taught me. And men I respected in the utmost way who taught me the things I teach you. But for whatever reason, pride, lust, greed, whatever it is, God knows their heart's not me. They bring swift destruction on themselves. They ruin their ministry. They ruin their reputation, and they cause the way of truth to be questioned, and their condemnation is hanging over them because people suppress the truth. But even though they're trying to suppress it, what may be known about God is plain, Paul says. They try. You can try to hide the truth, but it's going to come out. Okay. I always like what my friend Chris Williams used to tell me when people lied about me one time. He's like, hey, lies have speed, but truth has endurance. And after time, people see, people know. I remember when my mom left my dad, people like, George, they were questioning George. But after 5, 10 years, they see how she's living, they see how he's living, and it becomes clear. It was clear to me right away by looking at their lives, who was telling the truth and who wasn't. But as people go on, they come to see what the truth is. You can hide the truth, you can suppress it, you can try to keep it down, but it has a way of coming out, doesn't it? What may be known is plain. Read Acts 17:24 through 28 for me. I don't know who, hold on a second to see who I've got under Philip here. Did Philip, you just read, right? Aaron, would you read this one for us?
The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth and does not live in temples built by human hands. And he is not served by human hands as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. From one man he made all the nations that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from any one of us. And in him we live and move and have our being, as some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring.
So this is Paul's message to the pagan philosophers of Athens, both to the Epicureans, who their philosophy was eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die, and the Stoics, whose philosophy was don't enjoy pleasure, but rather have self-control and have wisdom in order to find fulfillment and meaning. Uh, to both of those two opposite schools of philosophy, this was his message. God made everything. He's not served by human hands. He gives us life and everything else, and he made all the nations to inhabit the. He marked out their appointed times and places and boundaries. Why? Why did God manipulate history? So that they would seek and perhaps reach out for him. See, everything, the way nations are and the way peoples are set up and the way it all is appointed and their boundaries and the different nations and states of the world, they're with the different languages that's actually put in place to increase the probability that people would seek him and find him, would reach out for him. So don't come to me and say, well, some people never had the opportunity to know about God. No, God has been manipulating history and encouraging them to seek him and find him by how he has manipulated history. Human history he has appointed times and boundaries and nations for the very purpose of causing people to seek God. And then it says here that what may be known about him is plain. Why? Because God has put it into creation and he's burned it into history. And even our societies and the way our societies are placed are set in such a way to cause people to go, I wonder who made all this. I wonder what's true. I wonder what's right. And to perhaps seek him and find him. And I want you to remember whoever seeks finds, whoever asks receives, whoever knocks, the door is open. So if anybody is out there and they're living in the deepest, darkest part of Africa and they never heard of a Bible or Jesus, and they look up at the stars at night and they see creation and they go, wow, I wonder who made all this. You know, who are you, Creator? Who are you, Great Spirit? He's going to send someone to tell him. You're telling me that if just some person from Africa wants to seek God, that he's going to send a preacher to him? Yeah, he did to the Ethiopian with Philip. You mean some pagan person who knows nothing about Jesus, if they just seek God, that they heard about this God and they try to do right by their fellow man and they seek him, God will send someone? Yeah, he did with Cornelius. That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's exactly what happens in the Bible. Anybody in this world who seeks God is going to find Jesus. They're going to hear about him. And that's our job. Our job is to go out to everyone and to be the proclaimer of the good news and allow God to lead us to these seekers. Because what may be known is plain. Okay? So that brings us to the cosmological argument, which is something that if you took my apologetics course, you've already heard me teach on. But the cosmological argument is an argument that argues the existence of God as creator of the universe or the original cause or the unmoved mover. Basically, everything that moves is moved by something, which in turn is moved by something. There must be something at the beginning that had the power to move itself, i.e., God. This proof comes from observing nature of causality in the exterior world. Someone had to start it. A version of the cosmological argument could be stated as follows. Every finite and contingent thing has a cause. A causal loop cannot exist. By the way, that's a proven fact. There is no energy loop because every time energy is transferred, some energy is lost. That's the second law of thermodynamics that causes entropy and death of everything. That's why there's rust and decay and death, is because every time energy is transferred, some energy is lost. That's why you can't take a Newton's cradle and hold the ball up on one side and let it go, and it just goes forever. After a while, it stops because each time energy is transferred, a little bit of energy is lost till finally there's no energy left. That's why there can't be a perpetual motion machine. There's no such thing as perpetual motion. Why? Because there cannot be a causal loop. A causal chain cannot be infinite in length. Therefore, there must be a first cause. There has to be something that is not an effect, and it must exist according to the laws of nature. I'm not even using the Bible here. I'm just using the laws of science. Something had to start everything. You learned about inertia in school, that an object in motion will remain not in motion unless acted upon by an outside force, and an object in motion will remain in motion unless acted upon by an outside force. That is the law of inertia. It's the second law of motion, and it is provable and testable. Every time we test it, it's accurate in all of creation. And so there's no way that the universe is an eternal, self-sustaining unit. Something had to start it. It had a beginning, and we can know that from looking at other things in creation. It had a beginning. And so what caused it? And what caused it to be ordered and structured and give life when naturally it will not do that? Naturally, it tends towards disorder. That second law of thermodynamics, where each time something is transferred, it loses a little something. So it's not a watch that's winding up, it's a watch that's winding down. So, from the laws of science, that right there makes evolution and an eternal universe impossible, not from a biblical standpoint, but from a science standpoint. So something had to start it. It's obvious that there's a being that started the universe because it's ordered and it's structured in a way that's so complicated we can't even reproduce or fabricate the basic elements of life. Not only can we not create life, we can't even create in a lab the building blocks of life. We not only can we not put the Lego pieces of life together, we can't even create the Lego pieces. And you expect me to believe that that all happened by chance over millions of years? No, 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 no. What may be known about God is plain. It is very plain. Then there's the teleological argument. that argues the obvious design and purpose of all things in creation proves there's a designer or infinite power. A version of the teleological argument would be stated as follows. Everything that exists serves a purpose. Chance and natural selection do not create purpose. Therefore, someone with a purpose had to create everything. You guys, that is pure and beautiful logic. That is a truth that they try to suppress. That's one of the things they like to act like isn't there, isn't reality, but it's obvious. I really liked the movie Hugo. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It was originally a book, but they turned it into a movie. And if you've never seen the movie Hugo, I would encourage, it's kind of a kid's movie. Encourage you to check it out. There's a character in it, Hugo, who is really into fixing things. And he works on clocks and he's an orphan and he's hiding and he's building this automaton. It's a very interesting story. But there's a girl that he befriends who he talks to. And he is up in this thing fixing something. And she goes, maybe that's your purpose in life, to fix things. And he points out, well, when I look at the world, I see that it operates like a machine. And every machine, every part within the machine serves a purpose. And therefore, if this world works with the precision of a machine, then each one of us is a part in it, then we all serve some sort of purpose. I serve a purpose in God's creation. That's the teleological argument, is that everything exists for a purpose. You know, there's no part on our body. Like one of the things atheists try to do is they say we have vestigial organs left over from, but obviously we don't. Every part of our body, we think, well, we don't, the appendix doesn't do nothing. Well, it actually does. It serves an important, you can live without it, but it serves an important purpose. Every part of you has a purpose. Just like in the church, we're all parts of the body, and everybody in the church should serve a purpose. We should all have a ministry. And so, if everything has a purpose, well, chance and natural selection don't create purpose. So, someone with a purpose had to create everything. It's just logic. That's the teleological argument. Then there's the intelligent design argument. What, there's another one? Yep. It argues that the universe and life require for their existence an intelligent designer. And whatever his purpose may have been, not that the universe was made for man. Um, a version of the intelligent design argument would be the requirements of the universe to exist to sustain life are too complicated to have been by chance or natural processes. Therefore, the universe was designed. Therefore, it has an intelligent designer, God. We can see from the intricacy of it that it was obviously designed. If you're walking through the desert and you find a bunch of little rocks all stacked up in a pyramid, you know they didn't stack themselves and that didn't happen by natural design or by natural processes. You know somebody walked by here and stacked those rocks up real tall. Or if you're walking along and you see carved in a rock, you know, Jared was here 2002. You know that there was some dude named Jared who walked by there in 2002 because you know that water didn't drip on that and just so happened over millions of years to spell Jared was here in 2002. You can tell from the design that there was a designer. The intelligent design argument is one I used in high school. Had a kid that was an atheist, and he had a pencil he was using, and I said, "Can I see your pencil?" And he said, "Yeah." And I looked at it, I said, "What's it say on this?" And he said, "Elmhurst High School, #2 pencil." I said, "Where'd you get this?" He said, "I bought it uh, in the office because in the office they sold pencils." And I said, "Well, do you know where it came from?" And he said, "Well, yeah, obviously a pencil factory." I said, "No, no. Over billions and billions of years, a tree fell in the forest and some of the wood fell in a certain way on top of some graphite that just happened to mix together. And then it just so happened to make a perfect octagonal shape and then be through dripping of water on it and made it down into the pointy pencil. And then accidentally some rubber from a rubber tree fell off in the perfect shape. And then some metal evolved over the years from some rock and made the little thing to hold the eraser on. And it just so happened that the things of gold paint and red paint fell on the pencil, and then water dripped on it, and then the sun dried it, and it just so happened to spell Elmhurst High School, which is coincidentally the name of our school, and it just so happened to say number two on it, which just so happens to be the kind of graphite that's in the pencil. Do you believe that? He's like, no. I'm like, well, obviously, this was designed. We can buy these for a nickel a piece. They make them probably for 2 cents a piece, and we make them all day long. And we can make much more complicated things, space shuttles, computers, rockets, all kinds of things, automobiles. But we can't come anywhere close to designing a human eye or the human heart or even understanding our DNA. There's never been a computer program written half as complicated as every DNA strand that's in every one of the trillions of cells in your body. And you expect me to believe that the pencil had to be created, but you are an accident of billions of years of evolution. That's just stupid. The intelligent design argument is, I just don't know how you get around it. See, what may be known about God is plain. They say they're atheists. They say they don't believe, but there's no answering these arguments. I mean, there are answers, but they don't make sense. They know. That's why I'm a atheist. See, what may be known about God is plain. And then, on top of that, there's the fine-tuned argument. This argues that the laws of the universe and the properties of energy and matter are too intricate and delicate to be the results of chance, and were therefore the purpose of sustaining life. A version of the fine-tuned argument would be, creation's laws and properties are precisely in tune to sustain life. There is no natural cause to explain this fine-tuning. The probability of this fine-tuning being a coincidence is way too high. Therefore, someone, i.e., God, fine-tuned the universe at its inception. The level of gravity, crazy stuff. I mean, just the speed of light, the nature of water, the air, everything. Everything is set in such a way that if it was changed at all, life couldn't exist. And there's dozens of things. And so the universe is fine-tuned. Even the laws of nature were written to sustain life. And then there's one of my personal favorites, the aesthetic argument. It argues the inherent beauty of creation is an argument for the existence of God. See, even if everything evolved, did it have to evolve beautifully? Why are things so beautiful, magnificent? It says in Ecclesiastes 3:11, everything is made beautiful in its time. Hey, there's some hope for some of us. Woo-hoo. Everything's made beautiful in its time. A version of the aesthetic argument would be creation is full of beauty. Not everything is beautiful, nor does it have to be. Beauty seems to be programmed into creation. Therefore, someone designed beauty into creation, and that person is God. So the aesthetic argument, there's no selective advantage for a beautiful sunset, for beautiful mountains, for beautiful ocean, for beautiful prairies, for beautiful sunrises, for beautiful stars, for beautiful galaxies. There's no selective advantage for those things. Why do they exist? What may be known about God is plain. There's the contingency argument. This argues that what has been made could not have been made by what we see. Therefore, there is an invisible creator. The contingency argument is as follows. If something exists, there must exist what it takes for that thing to exist. The universe is a collection of beings in space and time exists. Therefore, there must exist what it takes for the universe to exist. And what it takes for the universe to exist cannot exist within the universe or be bound by space and time and the laws of nature. Therefore, what it takes for the universe to exist must transcend both space and time and the laws of nature. It must be supernatural. I'll give you an example. Remember, we talked about inertia. If something's sitting still, it'll never move unless acted upon by an outside force. If something is moving, it'll never stop unless acted upon by an outside force. And yet there's movement all through the universe. What started that movement? Well, this. Well, then what? What started that? This. There has to be an original start. Okay? There has to be a something. Well, by the laws of nature, it could not have started itself. So whatever started this universe has to be from another dimension. It can't be from this dimension. By its own laws, it could not create itself. So it has to be a supernatural. There must be a supernatural, intelligent force that decided to start. And where you have power and intelligence and will, you have a being. Where you have intelligence and power and will, you have a being. And whatever started this universe is the most intelligent, most powerful being who willed it into existence. Other ones aren't forming right now in front of us, so it's not something that has to happen. It's something that happened by choice. So if there's choice, there's a will. If there's a will and there's power and there's in that mass intelligence, boom, that's the very definition of God. His invisible qualities. Through faith, we understand the worlds were framed by God's word, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. Hebrews 11:27, by faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger, but he persevered because he saw him who was invisible. By faith, we see the invisible. We believe in the invisible. For example, I went out to Delmarva when I was a kid for the very first time to the Delmarva camp, and Dad was preaching. He took us over to Ocean City. We're walking on the beach, me and Melody, my sister, and we see a guy with 6 toes, footprints with 6 toes. And we wanted to see the 6-toed man. So we followed the footprints for a long way. And finally, though, he walked up on the boardwalk and we lost his. Now, I never did see the 6-toed man, but I know he existed. From the evidence, I believe in the invisible. There was a 6-toed man or a jerk with a 6-toed prosthetic foot messing with us. But I believe the most likely choice is he was a 6-toed man. Okay? I wanted to go up to him and say, "You killed my father, prepare to die." But anyway, the 6-toed man, I believe, existed. Why? Because I saw the evidence. And likewise, I know that there has to be something unseen that created from what is seen. What I can study with science could not have created itself. Evolution is impossible based on the most basic provable laws of nature. Evolution is a theory based on unverifiable premises that contradict verifiable, testable, provable evidence. It goes against Newton's laws of motion, which every time I test them, they're true. It goes against all logic. I don't reject evolution because I believe in Genesis chapter 1 alone. I reject evolution because for scientific reasons. It's a bad hypothesis that when tested falls short. And there's a lot of science on that, but that's not what we're trying to cover in Romans class. I just want to point out that the Bible teaches that God's invisible qualities are seen in what is created. His eternal power and divine nature. Design has to have a designer. Order doesn't happen by chance. Creation demands a creator. Design and create it takes three things. It takes intelligence, free will, and power. Intelligence, free will, and power mean a person. Nature's laws don't have free will. Gravity doesn't go, today I'll work, but tomorrow I'm not gonna. You're all just gonna float around. The laws of nature do not have free will. But whatever created this universe does. It chose to do it and to not do it again. That's free will. And it obviously was done with great intelligence because it's fine-tuned and it's intricate. And obviously it's very powerful because everything we know, see, touch, taste, smell, and hear was created by it. So where you have infinite intelligence, absolute free will, and infinite power, there, my friends, you find a person who is easily defined as God. His who he is made clear in his creation. Design has to have a designer. Order doesn't happen by chance. Creation demands a creator. To design takes intelligence, free will, and power. That means a person. And nature's laws don't have free will. So we have a person. That's, by the way, that's why I don't believe in Star Wars kind of stuff, the Force. In Star Wars, there's this force that has power and almost intelligence, but no, it doesn't have, necessarily will or a personage. But in, from looking at creation, I can see that it's got free will, power, and intelligence so that it's a person. Now, it's clearly seen in creation. So God's invisible qualities, power, and nature are clearly seen in creation. Psalms 19:1. David, would you read that for us, please?
The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge. They have no speech. They use no words. No sound is heard from them. Yet their voice goes out into all the earth, their words into the ends of the world.
So the the heavens, the skies, they declare the glory of God. They talk every day, they talk every night, they reveal knowledge. Now, they don't use speech like us, they don't use words like us, they don't even have sound. Yet their voice, what they're saying, goes into all the earth and their words to the ends of the earth world. Is there anybody who doesn't see that? Everybody sees the heavens. Everybody can clearly see from creation that there's a creator. Well, what about the person in Brazil that's never heard of Jesus and they live in the jungle? No. The sun, moon, and stars speak to them. The heavens declare the glory of God. They pour forth speech. The voice goes out to all the earth. Everybody hears it, metaphorically speaking. No one has any excuse. We are all without excuse. No one's going to be able to stand before God and say, but I didn't know anything about you. Lie. Lie. Everyone. Dawkins, when he stands before God, isn't going to be able to say, well, I didn't know I was an atheist. No, he knew. It's going to be revealed that he knew. And he suppressed it. He suppressed the truth. I'm telling you guys, the lies we tell ourselves are the most dangerous lies. The second law of thermodynamics. Energy spontaneously tends to flow only from being concentrated in one place to becoming diffused and spread out. Energy spreads out, and when that happens, every time it spreads and changes form, some of it's lost, and it diffuses until there's no power left. All the processes manifest a tendency towards decay and disintegration with a net increase in what's called entropy, or a state of randomness or disorder of the system. This is called the second law of thermodynamics. I'll put it in modern language you can understand. Chevettes don't become Corvettes over millions of years. You take a Chevette and you stick it out in your yard, it'll rust away to nothing in no time. It doesn't evolve into a Corvette. Evolution is the exact opposite of the second law of thermodynamics. A provable, testable, repeatable law. not a theory. Theories are when we've got a hypothesis we haven't proven. But when you do something and every time you test it, it's proven true, that's when they start calling them scientific laws. And the second law of thermodynamics is all processes manifest a tendency towards decay and disintegration with a net increase in entropy or a state of randomness or disorder of the system. That's the exact opposite. We are not evolving, we're devolving. Human DNA is not getting better, it's corroding and rotting over time. Things, if you build a house, it'll crumble. If you build a car, it'll rust. If you build an awesome constitution in 250 years, nobody will follow it. Everything we build crumbles to the ground, though we refuse to see. We're dust in the wind. We all know that there's a God. So, verse 19 through 21. Vito, would you read us 19 to 21?
The creation waits in eager expectation for the sons of God to be revealed. For the creation was subjugated to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the glorious freedom of the children of God.
It's clearly seen. It's clearly seen. Creation is longing to overcome death. It was subject to frustration. What frustration? The second law of thermodynamics, that everything tends towards death and disorder and decay. You get old and you die. It wasn't subject to that second law of thermodynamics by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it. See, creation wasn't made that way. The second law of thermodynamics is the curse of death on sin that we read about in Genesis chapter 3. The second law of thermodynamics did not exist when Adam and Eve were created. There was no death. Nothing was dying. Nothing was corroding. They didn't even have weeds. Nothing evil was in there. If everything was perfect, I'm not sure there were cats. If there were, they probably didn't make me allergic. I can almost guarantee you mosquitoes didn't suck your blood. They didn't have weeds. See, things changed at creation. The whole world was cursed with death. Before sin, there was no death. And I'm being silly and exaggerating, and I'm sure there were cats. They're lovely animals. I'm joking, making a joke. But there were no weeds. There wasn't thorns and thistles. That God put a curse on the world. He didn't say, "Cursed are you, Adam, because of your sin." He said, "Cursed be the ground because of you, Adam." He cursed the ground with decay. It says here in Romans 8, 21, he subjected it to the bondage of decay. That's the second law of thermodynamics. It's death. The whole world was cursed with death because of sin. And that's clearly seen in creation. We already talked about inertia and how object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon by an outside force, and objects not in motion remain without motion unless acted upon by an outside force. There has to be some existence greater than this one to start this one, because the laws of creation could not have started itself. There has to be an original force. See, death makes it obvious that there has to be something beyond creation. If God had not cursed the world with death because of sin, we wouldn't have known of his existence, because it would look like the world was in a causational loop that lasted forever. Without death, we would all live under the delusion that there was no God. You're like, well, why would God curse the world with death? It doesn't seem very loving. Because he wanted there to be a consequence for sin that shows what happens without him. With him, there is eternal life. The causal loop, no energy is lost. The second law of thermodynamics does not apply when you're with God. But without him, with sin, it breaks the chain and it starts the corrosion, and the life force starts to wind its way out of creation until it dies. And if God had not cursed the world with death, we could not look at the world and know, well, it didn't create itself. The way I know the world didn't create itself is because of inertia and because of the second law of thermodynamics. There is no causal loop. Well, there was until God cursed it. And so that was part of the reason why God curses the world with death, is that shows, it leaves evidence of his existence. He knew people would start to doubt him and not believe in him and lose faith in him. And so he left his fingerprint on creation by causing death. It's a just punishment, but it's also the thing that brings us to seek him. If there was no death, would we be in a hurry to seek God? If we're going to live forever and never die, and we could just keep on sinning, would we be wanting to turn to God? No. It is that fear of God that's the beginning of wisdom, and it's caused by the curse on this world. It's because God is pouring out his wrath on all creation. And when God caused death, that was a loving act. When he cursed the world, that was done in love, so that we would seek him and find him and escape sin and death. So there's many reasons for death: justice, love, God's wisdom. There's many reasons. But one of them is there couldn't be a causal loop, or we wouldn't have known that God existed. See, he's clearly seen in creation. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. See, that's the evidence. Death, and the second law of thermodynamics, is the evidence that there's a creator. For by it the elders obtained good report. Through faith, we understand the worlds are framed by God's word, so that things which are seen are not made of things which do appear. You see, if he hadn't cursed the world with death, we wouldn't know that the earth couldn't create itself. If we didn't have the second law of thermodynamics, we couldn't know that. So God sent death into the world to, as proof of his existence. Evidence: from what is seen, we can know what is not seen. Logic, framed by the word, and the word for word there is logos, logic. God's logic. Logic requires order, and order requires design. And supernatural order, things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. Obviously, something that we've never seen had to make it. Now, I can't do this because we're not all in the same room. But normally what I do when we're in a classroom, like say we were all in the classroom at Summit, I would say, was my laptop created in this room? And everybody'd say, no. And I'd say, how do you know? And they'll say, well, it says made in China on the back of it. Yeah, okay. But how do you know somebody didn't stick a fake sticker on it? How do you know it wasn't made in this room? Well, the machines required and the raw materials required to make this laptop would not fit in any of the college classrooms at Summit. It would be impossible to make the glass, for example, on my screen, or the electronic components that require a clean room. It would be impossible for this computer to be manufactured in any one of the classrooms at Summit. And so from logic, we can deduce that the computer was not made in the room at Summit. We didn't see where it was made. We don't know for sure exactly where it was made, but we know it was not made in that room at Summit. And that's the way it is with God. We don't maybe know how he did it. We just know it had to be him, because there is no other way. There's nothing in all creation that could have made what we see and experience. And so that's a causal thing. I'm way over. I just realized. Well, let's do this one last slide, then we'll quit. Without excuse. Matthew 7:7. Ask and it will be given. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks, the door will be opened. So there is nobody who will be able to say, I didn't know. How was I supposed to know? Everyone is without excuse because of creation. And by looking and studying at the world that God has left us, everyone can see. And you don't got to be a rocket scientist. I always joke and say it's not rocket surgery. You it it is not that complicated. Evidence is there, Paul says, for everyone. No one on the day of judgment will be able to say, "Oh, I didn't know there was a God." Yeah, yeah, you did. The heavens declared his glory and they spoke day and night. You just suppressed that truth. You didn't love the truth, and so you didn't seek it and you didn't find. You deluded yourselves with lies to justify your wicked desires because you didn't want God. That's the reality. And that's what's going to be exposed on the day of judgment when the secrets of men's hearts are all laid bare. All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back and kick back in.